Welcome to the Starter Girlz Podcast, your ultimate source of inspiration and empowerment. We're here to help women succeed in every area of their lives: career, money, relationships, and health and well-being, while celebrating the remarkable journeys of individuals from all walks of life who've achieved amazing things. Whether you're looking to supercharge your career, build financial independence, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, the Starter Girlz Podcast is here to guide you. Join us as we explore the journeys of those who dare to dream big and achieve greatness. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and welcome to this episode. Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz Podcast. Wherever you are tuning in today, we are so thrilled to have you, and I'm so excited about my guest today. This is going to be fun. He is, I think, got a lot of energy, so I know we're going to have like a really good conversation today. But let me tell you guys a little bit about him before we do all our official welcomes. So my guest today is a storyteller with a passion for sharing inspiration and helping others navigate the publishing world. From uplifting social media content to expertly crafted books, he believes everyone has a story worth telling, and he's here to make it happen. And so we're going to hear from him in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I do need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine. All right, with that, one more announcement I want to make. I want to make sure you know to head on over to Starter Girlz with a Z. Make sure you know it's a Z, not the S.com. You can get over there and you can check out all these episodes if you're not following them on your favorite platform. But also you can sign up to get our newsletter over there and keep in with the know and who all of our fabulous guests are that are coming on the show. And so that, again, is startergirlz.com. All right, our guest today, Dominick Domasky, is an author, publisher, and founder of Motivation Champs, a platform dedicated to spreading inspiration, smiles, and positivity 24/7. As the author of 6 books, including Go Ask Your Dad and The Journey of a Grunt, Dominic helps aspiring authors bring their stories to life. Through publishing, screenwriting, in-person events, and nonprofit work, Motivation Champs offers comprehensive services from concept development to marketing. He also hosts the TV show Bikes and Hikes, inspiring audiences to explore the outdoors and create unforgettable memories. So Dominic, welcome to the show. So excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. And that was such a nice intro. It sounds much better than when you do it. So thank you.
I know. People love that part. I always tell them that's kind of my favorite part. I think that is all those years that I was in Mary Kay, because we always had events and we always had to like read accolades for our people, right? We always had to have them. And so I think I just have heard this for so long in my brain that I'm like, everybody should have a good accolade, right? We should all have an empowering entrance onto whatever platform we're going on to.
I'm going to sidebar this interview right now and tell you one of my dream jobs that I do. I volunteer at. I am the women's field hockey announcer for my daughter. She's like 15 years old, high school, and nothing I love more than giving it 100% when young girls go out onto the field. Welcome, and I scream and yell, and they deserve that, and everybody does. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and I bet they appreciate that. They go out there, they're pumped up. They're like, yes, I got that awesome announcement, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing more powerful than I think that. And you know what else, too, I think is like, we get so like used to what we do, right? Like we look at our stuffs and then we start saying, oh, well, I did that. That's cool, right? And then if there's something about it, like when we hear it in a different way and we're like, wow, like I did that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so it almost
sure.
kind of just puts it, refreshes it for us. And so that's kind of part of my old co-host. I say, my co-host that was on before, she used to laugh. She's like, hey, if you need an MC, call Jennifer. She's like a really good intro MC.
That's a great point. And just to double down on that, all of us are on this journey, right? And each day we're trying to get better, 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 and grow and get to this next platform. And you forget how hard you work to get to all those other platforms. And then when you say it again, hey, I did work hard for that.
Yeah.
And, and we should celebrate those little wins. So
I
thank you.
agree. Well, I'm excited to chat with you. I know this is going to be a lot of fun today. And, and doing what you're doing, your platform, the inspiration, but also the publishing part of things, because I know writing a book is no easy feat, and getting people to get their stories, out. There's so many people out there that have stories that just, don't really know where to start with that and how to bring that to this forward place. So I kind of want to start with your story. I want to back up a little bit and talk about how we got, how you got to where you are at this point, like what got you to writing and all of this good stuff. So give us kind of a little bit of a background on that.
Okay, I could do that for you. Well, number one, I would start with a lot of failure, a lot of getting knocked down. And as you pick yourself up, you start to realize that you can overcome a couple things. And I went broke in the restaurant business when I was 25, lost $500,000 and had to get into the corporate world at that point. So I was broke, I'm out of a job, have no money, getting everything repossessed. But I started to think that I had something to say. So I got a job selling yellow page ads, and they were big on writing your goals down. And I would write in these little notebooks, pay off produce guy, I owed him $5,000. So I'd go like every Saturday and pay the produce guy or pay the IRS for years. And I started writing my own notes. Well, do this, write this, build this. And they became more personal goals. And then I wrote on the front of that little notebook, first book, because I was a student of Og Mandino and Zig Ziglar and Jeffrey Gitomer, and I'm reading all these people, and they helped me get through these tough times. But I started thinking, I got something to say. It's a little bit different. It's about going broke or getting beat up, and I started writing those terribly writing in my notebooks, those kind of stories, and it took years and years, and I wrote and published my first book. And I have since retired that book because it wasn't any good. I made a million mistakes. I learned as I was promoting it and developing it, like, man, I sold all my rights. I wrote an underdeveloped book. It wasn't edited enough. The cover was silly. The name was silly. But I did it. I got that first one out. I started to get some experience. But as I would be out speaking or trying to get the word out, people started to tell me their stories. And very early on, they told me their stories, or they told me they wanted to write a book. And I learned, wait a minute, if I really want to share inspiration, really early in my journey, I started thinking, well, it's less about me and it's more about how do I help other people share their story. And so it happened at the same time. Like, wait a minute, this is the path I'm going, isn't really the path. I've been on stages and got paid to speak on a lot of stages, but the path I wanted to go was, well, to get out to as many people as I could, to help other people, like me and you talking today. I'll be able to share you on my platform, and people find the Starter Girlz Podcast, and then I'll maybe meet some new people being on your podcast, and together we help more people share their story. And so that's what my company is called, Motivation Champs. And to help more people share, we do a lot on social media, a lot through publishing, but the root is how every day can I help one more person share their story, which maybe helps one more person get through a hard time, or if they're going through whatever they're going through, maybe we have a story or a message that helps them get through that day, and then the next, and then the next.
Right. It's good. We're kind of it's funny, we're doing similar things, just different media platforms, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so crazy because something that stuck out in my mind when you said you were a student of Zig Ziglar, because Zig Ziglar is the one that said we can get what we want when we help enough other people get what they want, right? Yeah. 27 years of network marketing, Zig Ziglar was like in our space a lot. Funny enough, there's a guy here named Brian Flanagan that worked with Zig Ziglar, traveled with him on stage for 20-something years. And so I've gotten to work with him a little bit. And he was actually on the podcast a while back. And I laugh about it because I think about how when we talk about these stories, how our life evolves. having been, when I was in Mary Kay, I was kind of secluded in the Mary Kay world. Like I didn't really network outside of Mary Kay.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I moved out of that, I thought, how ironic it is that I meet the guy that traveled with Zig Ziglar for 20 years on stage with him. And I got to actually work with him, do a presentation. And I got him on my podcast, and I get to see him all the time. I'm networking all the time,
Yeah.
So I just think it's funny how life is. But you're right, too, on your point about these stories, is that one thing I always tell people, I'm like a sucker for a good story. And I think it's because I've been through a lot of hard things myself. And, I joke all the time. I say that, God doesn't give you anything he doesn't think you can't handle. But sometimes I think he just keeps piling the things on so that I will have more stories to talk about, and sometimes I'm just like, I'm good. I've had enough stories. I'm trying to tell everybody else's down. I have plenty, but I think there's a reason we have a voice. Yours is books. Mine's the podcast. It's the platform. And I share the things through this medium. And I'm like you. I think so many people have great stories. And if we can help one person, if they hear or read or see something that makes a difference in their life, that's what this is about. Right? At the end of the day, that's what it is for me, is that I just want to show people that there are amazing people in this world doing amazing things. And a lot of them have come from hard situations.
Yeah.
They haven't been given the little crystal ball with all the, the silver platter. They had to work to get to where they are,
There's a quote by Lou Holtz that used to coach Notre Dame back in the day. And he said, the greatest gift I was ever given was I wasn't granted a silver spoon.
Yeah.
And not being given the silver spoon gave him the motivation. And I think those hard times, all those things, they build your character, they build your resolve. And you and me are trying to show people that.
Yeah, they definitely humble you. They'll bring you to your knees sometimes and make you reassess for sure. But no, I think it's great what you're doing. And, to point back to your book, when you said you retired your book, I kind of chuckled about that, because I've only written one book, and it was hard. I mean, it might be easier the second time now because I've done it, but I wrote it in 2019, and it was by no means, I mean, I laugh about it now. It's such a simple read. It's probably cheesy. At one point I'll get like you, I'll be like, maybe just retire that thing. But for me, it was kind of a cathartic release. Like, it was like, people ask me, like, are you going to promote this thing? And I'm like, no, it's just like, I just wanted to write. I wanted to write a book and tell my story and put it out there. And it's funny because I go on other people's podcasts sometimes. And when I go on their podcast and I tell them my story, they go, oh, because they don't know this. It's funnier when they read my book, because the book is fresher, because it's detailed. And then they read it and they go, I never knew that. Like, I never knew like that. Was what was going on in your world, And so I think it can be a very powerful thing for us to share our stories, right? Yeah. And get them out there, not only because it allows other people to resonate and find maybe something in that will help them, but also it's good for us, right? It gives us a place to get that out and almost release that. In
the publishing world, we always try to find out why somebody is writing the book.
Right.
And if you're writing it cathartically, to give to your family, to sit on a table, that's so honorable. Nobody said that you need to go on a podcast tour or try to get in the newspaper or speak on the college tour, right? You don't need to do all that things or set up at craft shows on the weekend. But you
might
could
be smarter though if you do all that.
I will tell you. It's funny because I have like tips on how to sell books. You cannot do those things, or you could do those things. Like each one of those, like posting on social media, posting a link on social media, each one would help you.
Right.
There isn't one answer that is right, but except when people say, I'm not going to do anything. Well, then maybe you get lucky and the right person. But I would try these other 30 things.
Yeah, you definitely need to listen to you to do the right things. Like I said, I think it just gets back to like what are your objectives are, right? Like at that time, mine was not. I don't know. I think if I were to do one now, I probably would approach it differently. But it's the same thing even when I talk about this podcast too, because for me, the podcast, this is a labor of love project. I enjoy the conversations and I enjoy sharing the stories. I enjoy sharing the light on you guys that come on the show. But obviously you got to think smart sometimes. And it's so funny because I finally, after 5 years of doing it, it's interesting because now, like, the YouTube page, we're up to about 14,000 followers now on YouTube, which is like, yay, hallelujah. And the YouTube world, we're like, yes, we're growing, right? Because we sat at like 3,000 for a long time, and now I'm actually, I sent in this week a application to trademark Starter Girlz, to actually get it trademarked. And I started my email campaign. I'm telling you all this to say that I'm actually now in this process of saying, okay, yes, we want this to be a labor of love project, right? But we need to be working smart too. Like, we need to be thinking smart here. And so there's nothing wrong with what you're saying here as far as, if you write a book, yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, I want to do something with this, I just think it's where we are in our journey of all of this that we have to decide. And for me, it's always been like this, I got to go through this whole little, let's do it this way. And then I'm going to be like, no, we need to work a little smarter. We need to be a little smarter now.
Right. There's levels, and you learn along the way, and then you find out what you're comfortable doing. Somebody might say, I hate going to a craft show. I hate trying to get sponsors, whatever it is that your business encompasses.
Right.
Well, sometimes you have to embrace those things, or sometimes you can say, nah, that's not for me. I'm going to keep it. I have an author that goes to 2 shows a year around. She goes at Christmas time and goes probably one other time a year. She's completely comfortable with that. And it's a beautiful thing.
So when a client comes to you, I want to give maybe, our audience kind of view of this, because there may be somebody sitting here right now that's like, hey, I'm on the verge. I mean, I know people that are always talking about writing books and then getting them to that next step, But let's say somebody's coming to you and they got sort of a concept, this idea of what they want to do. What's like that first thing you do with them, like, to help them kind of get, in that, let's get this going. Let's make something happen.
Well, one, I love to hear. I love to sit down one-on-one and hear what their concept is. And I could be completely captivated by concept. So first step is hearing it, seeing it one-on-one. Wow, that's amazing. It might be like the business is Motivation Champs. I believe in the project. The book has to do the world some greater good, make you smile, make you think, make you grow, elevate you in some skill. All those things would be motivational. It could be faith, it could be business. That's inspiration, motivation, and so does it fit that? But then is it riveting? Is it captivating? So now here's where we could lose a lot of people. The second thing I want to do after we have this nice talk is I would like to see what you have. Okay. Now, you could send me a page, you could send me a Word doc, you could send me a Google doc, you could send me something trademarked, whatever. I just want to see, what are we working with at this point? Some people will send me 140,000 words edited, and you're like, oh, I get it. Some 60,000 clean, concise. Some send 4 pages with emojis on it. Okay, so now there's nothing wrong with that, but it shows me 4 pages with emojis isn't a book. If somebody wants to write, you can't put out 4 pages, and that might turn into 6.
Be like cryptic emojis. We got to do more.
We should write that book. It'd probably do great, but. I'm wrong. I just realized. Okay, so once we have that, and then we can see from that point, oh, you need editing, you need developing, you need coaching, you need ghostwriting, you need to go back and give yourself an honest 6 months. Okay, you need outline, you need story structure, you need all these things from that point. It is hearing stories, seeing, and now helping you get by whatever resource. And this is what a hybrid, like there's all forms of publishing, self-publishing, traditional, hybrid. So I consider myself in this hybrid world because we're looking at what you have at that point and now saying, what services do you need to get you to where you want to go? It is not one size fits all because everybody comes in completely and with a different timeline. Like some people, I hate artificial timelines. Somebody will say, I want to publish this book by my birthday, why? Now, if you're speaking into Congress in 6 months or 3 months, well, that changes things too. But if there isn't if there isn't an artificial deadline, we have this talk and I say, okay, now go back and set a realistic date, whether it's 1 month, 3 months, 2 months, and see if you can get it to where you want to be. Even if it's a week, somebody might say, I've already worked on this. Here, take it. Okay, but you owe it to yourself to give it your all. Once you've done that, then we can take it, and a team of people, different editors, different developers, formatters, cover designers, they'll all together help you build the book that lays the foundation to get you to wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I love this. And I love that you're talking about meeting them where they need or where they are, because I do think that's important. It's that I feel like that's when we're in this world of like working with people. I think really no matter what you do, you almost always got to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you're trying to, I mean, think of it even from a sales perspective. If you have something and you're selling your goods to them and they're not at this space where they, one, need what you have to offer, we're in a great place because we have services where we can sort of fit them a little bit, right? Mold where, kind of, but even in sales, if you think about it, like when people are selling things, products to somebody, if the client's not really where they need to be for that particular thing, then it's not beneficial, and they may need to go back and either they got to find a different thing, or they got to, in your case, like go back and assess and come up to where they need to be. But I love that you're meeting them where they are, because I think that's so instrumental in creating the success that they need. Instead of saying this is a one size fits all, this is where we started. And I don't think there's anything wrong if that's the way you want to do it. But I think if you really want to see people successful, you got to meet them where they are.
Yeah, that's fair.
I love that. There was something else you mentioned that stuck out, but I lost, and it'll probably come back to me in a few minutes. I know what I was going to tell you when you were talking about get the outline or whatever. And I know when I was writing my book, the outline was like the hardest thing for me to put together, because I feel like I'm an organized person, but I'm kind of one of those people that when I start to write, I just kind of start like, writing.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, now I got this great idea. Now I got to organize this idea. But once I had somebody help me with the outline part of it, it was actually easier for me, because now I knew what I needed to write about and I could organize it. Like I could get the stuff, but I didn't write like in a flow, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. Many people write in stream of conscious, and they'll just, this is what's coming out. So we can take stream of consciousness and put it into outline, or put it into, I study story structure ad nauseum, and my wife will get mad if we're watching a show and I'm looking at Netflix rather than a 3-act structure. Netflix has a 5-act. Netflix has a 5-act structure because there's a hook at the end, there's a hook at the beginning, and a hook at the end. So that's different than a 3-act. So I am into the structure of memoirs, the structures of how-to books, all those things, understanding even more. I'll take your outline and go one step further and say, oh, where are you? Which of these are you trying to do?
Right. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Yeah, because it can, I think, everybody, we all have our sort of our little gifts, areas that we're really good at. But for me, I remember that being the biggest, I guess the trickiest part for me was, and back, I know what it was. We were going to talk about the deadlines when you're talking about artificial deadlines. I don't know about you, but you're probably figuring this. You probably, after all the books you've done, I've learned that you can set a deadline and it never happens on that. And you've got to have a little room for grace. Right now I'm building out a program that's actually going to be tied to Starter Girlz. That's why we were having this conversation about the trademark and everything. So my initial goal was, let me back you up and tell you how this worked. I worked with a mentor for 2 years. I built a high ticket course. It is a beast. It's like a Netflix experience, basically taking a client from all my years of Mary Kay, which are immersion type experiences, but take what I learned in all the personal development, merge those together. It's like watching a movie, basically. So you're going to go through an experience in this course. And so I build this out and I get done with it. And I'm like, this thing is huge. Who is going to buy this? Somebody like me. But what's going to convince somebody like me to want to buy that? Okay. What I want to do is I want to take the person over here and get them to this level. So I'm like, how am I going to do that? These people aren't ready to buy this. They're not going to pay for this because they're not in that space yet. So then I work in another mastermind. I did that over the summer. And she helped me to engineer it backwards on how to take the client from point A to here to get them to this place. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the light bulb goes off. I'm like, okay, now that makes sense. Now I have a plan of action. I'm just telling you that we're 2 years into this now. So I built out like my introductory thing. Now I'm building out this micro niche course, and I'm almost done with it. But here's the funny thing, Dominic. The whole thing is about subconscious blocks. And in the middle of this, I realized perfectionism is my massive subconscious block. And I keep talking about this on the podcast because it is making me so mad, right? So I set deadlines, right? Because if I set a deadline, then the deadline gets me off the perfectionism. It says, okay, you got to get this done by the end of the month. Stop editing 100 times, right? So what I've learned is, yes, I have to set those, but I also have to give myself grace, because this program was supposed to be done at the end of November. Now I'm crunching to do it for the end of December, right? And so to your point, we do, I think, have to give ourselves a little bit of grace when we're doing that, and just know that it may not happen on the day that you say it is, but as long as you keep working, you're going to get it there, but just don't beat yourself up if it doesn't fall out on that particular day, You
have to do the best that you can with what you have at that time. And so many people fall into this false comparison because they see some star who has millions of photographers and videographers following them all day and so much money to do. I call that jumping the line. Some people you have finances or other skills that allowed you to jump the line in a way. And so sometimes you just got to put in the blood, sweat, and tears and understand that don't compare yourself to those people that jump the line for whatever reason.
Right. Well, I want to ask you a question kind of about mindset, because you've been doing this for a while and you've said a lot of really good things in here. And I know that a lot of where you are today is because you've had to overcome, adversity and things and some really hard things. And I think it teaches us grit and resilience and grace and all the things that, make us like be able to do these things. And so I would love to know just kind of like, what your headspace is when because let me back to it, even as business owners today, we still deal with things. We still have things that come up that frustrate us. Somebody doesn't sign a contract, somebody doesn't go through, whatever. I would just love to know like what how you stay focused in those moments and like what the mindset is around that kind of, when you get into that, get into that rut.
Yeah. It happens every day to all of us. So this guy's never down. No, that's not true. I choose not to share those kind of things. I have a goal to share inspiration, positivity, and smiles and help other people do the same. So I believe and I work hard. I work my butt off to never be off message with inspiration, positivity, and smiles. So I live in a world. Sometimes I'll kid that it's full of puppies and rainbows because I choose to remove myself from toxic people, toxic situations, things that are going to lead me astray. So in those days, now back to the days of the hard days, we talked about helping one person, making a difference to one person, like with your show. What if it's one listener? What if you write something? What if you help somebody share the story that helps another person? Okay. So at my root, if my mission is to share inspiration, positivity, and smiles, if I did that to one person by the end of today, I did a pretty good job. So even if I can remember the goal, sure, I wish it was 1,000. I wish it's 1,000,000. Maybe tomorrow it'll be 1,000,000 people because this happens and that happens, and maybe because we've put out so much content that all that day 1,000,000 people see it. Who knows? But if my mission was to start out one person, so on that day where everything goes wrong, I still believe in the mission. I'm true to the mission. I'm on the mission. Yeah, bad things happen, but the mission is pure, and that's where, like we talked about, the catharticness of writing books. Where people go awry is they get caught in the metrics. They get caught in, I want to sell 1,000,000 books tomorrow. Well, you might sell 1,000,000 books. I know people that sold millions of books. You might, but if the mission's pure on your way there, even if you're not doing those kind of things yet, you'll be happy. So sure, this stunk today, that stunk, this guy yelled at me. Well, this didn't go right. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's part of the journey. And like you said earlier, that's what makes the stories better. Those hard times make the berry sweeter, maybe.
Yeah. No, it's good. I like it. And I was going to say, add to all of this because I think it's so powerful that you be purposeful about the people that you put in your space. I don't know about you, but I pick up on people's energy and I physically do not feel well when I'm around people that are negative and I feel like they're sucking just life.
They are.
Say the words like you are sucking life out of me like a vampire. Like I just
Yeah.
cannot, I have such a hard time. So I have to be very purposeful like you about, the people that I allow into my space because it really affects me a lot. And so, and I love this that you're purposeful about this because I think that, yeah, we all deal with things. But one of the things I always say is that, chasing happiness is not the goal, but in your overall, if you're happy most of the time, you wake up for the most part, you're having a pretty good day and you can find the blessing in the day. You're living a pretty good life. That's what I think. You're living a pretty good life. Is it happy every single moment of the day? No, never. But I think this idea of waking up and being content is good. And I think it comes from what you're talking about, this purposeful living, this purposeful movement, right? And it's not getting, you said a word that I often use, metrics. Because people they put these ideas, like they'll do it with exercise. It's like, I have to go to the gym. So I work out pretty much every day. I was an aerobics instructor for many years. I'd see it every year, January, they all pile in and they would have these insane metrics. I'm going to work out for 2 hours a day, 5 days this week. And they've never been in the gym. They never been in the gym consistently. And I'm like, why would you do that? You're setting yourself up for failure. Why would you even do that? Stop with the dumb metrics, right? We have to come from a different place. It should be, how do I figure out how to incorporate fitness into my day where I actually enjoy it? So maybe you go dancing, go take dancing lessons, or maybe you go join a kickball league or a softball league, or I don't know. I had a client one day that was actually going to like those game places like Dave and Buster's and doing the Dance Revolution thing. I'm like, okay, so go for it. You're moving, right? It's these unnecessary metrics that we put on ourselves that I think actually restrict us and bind us and make us miserable.
Yeah.
Sure. So I love what you said about that. I just wanted to hone in on that because that's where I talk a lot it's just being realistic about how we can show up in the world and how do we find this fulfillment. But I think, I think you're kind of doing some of the things that I always talk about, which is really growth and contribution. It's this idea of I'm continuing to grow and I'm contributing, I'm giving back in a way. And when you figure out how to put those two things into your world, I think you can sort of live purposefully. You know what I mean?
You lay the blocks, lay the foundation of whatever you want to do. If you have this dream, what if you could do it 10 minutes a day? What if you could do it 10 minutes a week? 10 minutes is better than none. Right. Then you get to 10 minutes a day. Then you get to one episode a month. And how many episodes do you do now?
Yeah. It is. It's what it is.
You just keep building, and then you get to, hey, this is. You look around, and all of a sudden you're right in the middle of where you want to be. That doesn't mean that every day is perfect or that you're not still trying to grow. But,
and I tell people even that with this podcast, because we put out, I think the 500th video on Starter Girlz last week or the week before. I didn't realize we did that many. That doesn't count. Like I had another show. We did probably 150, 170 episodes on there. So I've had a lot of people, but it's funny because, now I'm looking at it and going, okay, now it's growing. Like I don't know what is going on with that YouTube page. Like I wake up and there'll be 200 more subscribers. I'm like, yes, I'm not complaining. Hell.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. But my point I'm trying to make in this is that, I had to start that thing in the beginning in 2019. If you go back and you look at that show in the very beginning, I'll leave the episode and go check them out. They're fun to watch because you can kind of see the rawness of it, like we didn't know what we were doing and even how much I've evolved as a speaker over that time. I've done a lot of talking since then. So it's that one little thing at a time that you do, and you've got to do it, I think, from a place of heart-centeredness, I think, is that you have to like what you're doing and be willing to do it for free and be willing to do it a little bit in a grind to reap the benefits that you're wanting to get. Doesn't mean you don't do what you're talking about, work and lay things out and put yourself in opportunities where you can, excel, but you've got to be willing to know it's going to take some time to do all these things that you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
You're right on. I got nothing to add. That was beautiful.
That's good. I love what you're doing. I think it's good. So I had another question for you, and then we got off onto that. This is what happens to me. I get so excited about what we're talking about, and I'll have a question. I'm like, we were having a good conversation there, and I got to come back to it in a minute. So I want to ask you kind of some fun questions, and we'll wrap this up here so people can find you and all that good stuff. But I'd love to know, so when you're not writing books and you're let's talk about this other TV show, because that sounds like a fun thing.
Okay, there we go.
The outdoor show. Tell us about this, because I was going to ask you, what do you do when you're not writing books? Like, what's the other fun things in the world? But I have a feeling this might be one of them.
Okay, so this is interesting because, like, in a bubble, if we're talking about this, I love riding my bike. So I love going out and seeking the outdoors. It wasn't something, my dad's in the landscape business, but the outdoors was not something I understood growing up. I grew up playing basketball and probably in gyms, so I have more of an appreciation now. And so me and a buddy go out and bike and hike the local trails of Western Pennsylvania and try to show the world that right outside your door, that there's places you've never been that don't cost a lot of money that you can go out and enjoy. So me and a dear friend, we goof around. Now, I will tell you, when things aren't always good, I fell off my bike, hit a manhole this year and broke a rib, hurt my elbow, hurt my wrist. That hurt like heck. And then recently I had 6 hernias fixed. So tis life. So, but I enjoy the bikes and hikes, and we have a great time. And it's really trying to show people that memories, here's our slogan that we go with, memories are just a bike or hike away. So get out there and see the world.
Yeah. Well, I think we all have to have kind of a little fun passion project on the side too.
Yeah, and so that actually airs in about 8 states on Armstrong. It's it's a regional cable company. So in rural areas, somewhere you might see me, somewhere you'll never see me.
I might be traveling through somewhere, and I'll be like, hey, I know that person.
Yeah, somewhere in rural Ohio, I'm on 6 times a day.
I have to tell my husband about it, though. This is funny because, well, he's from Montana. He's from a really small town in Montana. So there is a likelihood we could be traveling through and stop at some motel somewhere and get a cable station, and you're on there, because we do that. We will drive from here to there, and we end up stopping in some really rustic places in these little motels, and you never know. So there's that. But also he likes to ride his bike too. And so he does, he's a former endurance athlete. So he was a runner, and now he doesn't run near as much because we're older now. So he rides his bike a lot, but he'll do it to work. Like he'll ride his street bike to work, pedal, and then he cleans up at work and then rides his bike home. And when you talked about hitting the hole, I'm like, he's had a couple little run-ins. So I was wondering, like, because I know he's flipped his bike. He had a woman in a parking lot hit him coming out of a parking lot, knocked his laptop off the back. I mean,
make sure he's wearing a helmet. And I haven't always been a helmet wearer, and I am a reborn believer in helmets. I grew up in the 90s where it wasn't as cool to wear helmets, and so it was a miss on my part. Wear your helmet.
Yeah. Well, I'm a 80s, 70s, 80s kid, so I know we didn't have seatbelts back then. Like we sat in the back of our parents' trucks going down the highway, so yes, he does wear a helmet, thank goodness. But I'm going to tell him about this, because he's probably gonna be like, yeah, I'm going to check that out, see what that's all about. So good for you. And to that point, I think that like having those fun projects, I think everybody should kind of have like something that if you're not able to do it within your work, like with like you love what you get to do in your work, not everybody ends up doing that in life. I think it's good that if you can find something, an outlet, something you really enjoy doing, because I think that inspires creativity and ingenuity, and it makes life a lot more fun, for sure.
Yeah. I to speak to that, like I spent 20 years in insurance and pharmaceuticals trying to get to the point where I could take the leap again after I had my business failures. So it wasn't It was incremental. It was
Right.
metrics. But I have so much respect for somebody that says, I want to get off at 4 o'clock every day so I can coach my son's baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And their passion is to be a baseball coach. Well, you are doing exactly what you're doing so
Right.
that you can do exactly what you want to do. Beautiful thing. So the only issue I would have is if somebody isn't happy. If you're not happy, well, then we need to make some changes. But if you are happy with where you're at because it allows you to go watch baseball games or be off so you can watch the Steelers like me on a Sunday, whatever that is, well, more power to you.
I'm with you. Amen. I agree. You got to figure out what makes you happy in life for sure. It's going to be miserable if you don't find something for sure. So this has been great, Dominic. If our audience listening to this, hopefully somebody, hearing this is saying, hey, I'm like sitting there, I need to write a book, or maybe they want to follow you, in your social media. Maybe they want that, some additional inspiration. I think we all could use that, right? There's a lot of negativity in the world. We definitely could all use inspiration. Where would you like us to send them?
Well, Jennifer, first, thank you for being so graceful and having me on in the conversation. I'm loving it. I could talk to you all day long. I would welcome anybody to check out Motivation Champs across the internet, websites, Facebook pages, Instagram pages. If you look up Motivation Champs, we will be sharing 24/7. The goal is to share uplifting content that'll maybe you'll check it out and be like, hey, maybe today wasn't that bad, or maybe tomorrow is going to be a better day. And hopefully we can be putting out those kind of books, that kind of content, those kind of videos, these kind of shows I am on here today, like Starter Girlz, sharing that kind of beautiful content.
Absolutely. I think sometimes it's good to put the rose-colored glasses on. I like mine. I used to actually have some really very cute, had some pink glasses. I like putting those on. I will say the world is full of all the stuff that's happening every day. Doesn't mean we don't see it. We just choose whether or not we want to sit in it. And that's how I live every day. It's like, I'm going to put my rose-colored glasses on. I'm cool with it. Dominic, this has been amazing. We'll make sure when this goes out, we'll get the website in there so that people can find you. And usually we put something on the video that has like the social links so that people that are watching it can actually see it too. So we'll get all that in there. And so I appreciate all your, your wisdom, and thank you for your time and your contribution and all that you're doing in the world to make it a better place.
Thank you. We're trying, my friend.
Absolutely. And of course, to our audience, we hope that you found this episode inspiring and informative. And if you did, be sure you check out Dominic, go to his website, but also go hit all our social platforms and share, like, subscribe. You can comment, do all the things so that we can keep sharing all these fabulous stories and bringing the content to you. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start. Every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.